Okay, everyone. So let us carry on. And so we're looking at this verse just to remind ourselves what we're looking at. Where did it go, this verse? So here we are, verse number 7. Respect and humility, contentment and gratitude. So we have looked at the ideas of respect, we have looked at humility, we're going to look a little bit at contentment and gratitude, and then finally the timely hearing of the Dhamma. There's a lot to this verse. It's very full of nice little words that relate very closely to what the Dhamma is about, and so we're going to investigate all of these things a little bit from the point of view, see what the suttas have to say about this. So, where are we now? Shorter discourse indeed. So, now we're going to look at the idea of contentment, and this is a really nice little passage on the idea of contentment that we find in the gradual training, and this is again an extract from the shorter discourse on the elephant's footprint, Majjhima Nikaya 27, one of the really nice suttas on the gradual training. And there we have the following passage on the idea of contentment. Contentment is placed in the gradual training after the virtues and before sense restraint. And the idea there is that when you are content, then you are moving on towards the purification of the mind, because the opposite of contentment is to have ill will and desires and these kind of things. It is counter to contentment. So if you're content, the purification of the mind begins. So you have the ordinary virtues, beginning of purification of mind, and then you get the sense restraint and these kind of things, which is in meditation eventually, which are the further purifications of mind. So contentment is a great way of starting the purifying of the mind, overcoming all of these excessive defilements, especially the greed and the desires. So this is what it has to say here. They are content. This is referring to monastics now. They are content with robes to look after the body and alms food to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. They're like a bird wherever it flies. Wings are its only burden. In the same way, a mendicant is content with robes to look after the body and alms food to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. So the alms food here really signifies the idea of the alms bowl. It's a little bit weird that it says alms food. Your alms bowl should maybe be included as well. You carry your alms bowl with you. You don't really carry the alms food with you, but not so much. But anyway, that's kind of the idea here. So you live a very simple life. This is really simple life. All you have is your robes and your bowl. You don't have a laptop. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm in trouble. So very simple life, just very, very nice and unburdened. You wonder about the world. You don't really, you can walk wherever you want. There's nothing to hinder you, nothing to go back to, nothing that, you kind of have to look after in a sense. And this is kind of this idea of being very free to move about wherever you like. Very rare to find monastics these days who live exactly like this, but still occasionally you do find it. So it's like the bird which has the wings as its only burden, right? The wings are kind of necessary, but I guess they are a kind of burden. Anything you have is a burden, so it is a kind of burden, but it's a necessary burden. So it's a very minor kind of burden. In the same way, the robes and the alms bowl are very minor burdens, and keeps it very simple. Do you like this idea of a monastic just wandering around with nothing, finding the root of a tree somewhere? It was interesting. Yesterday I went for a walk again. Yesterday I went by myself because I realized people can't keep up with me. So And as I was walking, I came back, and there was this Indian man who kind of stopped me and said, "Oh, Venerable," or what did he say? He said, "Swami," yeah, because according to the Indians, you are Swami. You are kind of Swami means like Lord or something. That's a very kind of elevated word. "Oh, Swami, I have a Buddhist vihara over here. Will you come with me here?" And I felt a bit, okay, not sure how safe that is. It's kind of this random person inviting me. So but still, it's kind of nice. Yeah, he recognizes you straight away as a Swami. This is what they would call you in ancient India. And there's a Buddhist vihara. Maybe he was the real thing. I don't know. You never really feel too sure, especially where I was walking was a bit kind of, it wasn't the best district of KL or whatever. So, but still, people recognize that. Say again? I didn't go with him. No, there wasn't any time anyway. There was kind of the wrong time to go with him. But it shows you that you can live like that. Yeah, people will often look after you, and they will do things for you when they see you as a Buddhist monk. It's one of those beautiful things about being a monastic. Is how often people do they actually do look after you, and they will give you special allowances, and they will, and that's kind of beautiful. Even in Perth, even in the Western world, they recognize you sometimes as a religious person, and they will, you go somewhere. Oh no, for you it's for free, right? Because you're a Buddhist monk, so that's no need for you to pay, and these kind of things. So there's a recognition there, and the idea then you can live like this. People often say, "Oh no, you have to have money as a monk, because otherwise how can you get anything done without money? Yeah, you have to get on the bus and that sort of thing." That's what most monastics say. Actually, you don't. You don't need to have money as a Buddhist monk. You can get around quite easily. Yeah, it's not that hard. Once people recognize that you don't have money, they will support you. And I've never, ever in my life really needed money. There have been a few occasions when it's been a bit dicey. You arrive at an airport, there's no one there to meet you, and you don't have a mobile phone, you got nothing, and that can be a bit dicey. But otherwise, not so much of a problem. I remember some years ago, I went on one of my famous long walks, and I was walking around Warsaw. This is Poland. I can't speak a word of Polish. Yeah, I'm zero Polish. And most Poles don't speak very good English, and even less Pali. And so I decided to go for this long walk. So I looked at the map before I left. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go there. It was about 25 kilometers, something like that, walk, yeah? And so quite a long one. But very often you look at the map is one thing, but the land actually doesn't look quite like the map. So after walking about 10 kilometers, I had no idea where I was anymore. I'm losing completely my way in Warsaw. And so I thought, what do I do now? I haven't got a mobile phone. I haven't got anything. I just got my robes, and I didn't even have a bowl, just my robes, basically, and my glasses. I got my eyes with me, I think. So what did I do? And eventually I found my way to a petrol station. And sometimes petrol station, they may know a bit of English, because they have to give petrol to the foreigners or whatever. And so I went there and I said, I need to go back where I came from. So they said, well, where do you come from? I said, don't know. I didn't have any address. I had nothing. I had the zero. It was really difficult. So I said, well, just show me a map, and then maybe I will recognize where I came from. And so he showed me the map. So I said, I think I came from roughly there. And they said, okay, in that case, you have to walk like this. And so eventually I made my way back. That was kind of interesting. So you have to live a little bit on the edge to make life interesting sometimes. So this is the nice thing. Nothing usually happens. If you have a bit of common sense, you're not completely foolish or stupid. People will look after you. I mentioned to you the other day when Bhante Sujato, my friend from Australia, when he landed in Vienna, and the lay people kind of picked him up at the airport, and he was carrying a shoulder bag, and they asked, well, where is your luggage? Oh no, I don't have any luggage. And they said, oh, it must be so nice to have to travel without luggage. And Bhante said, no, you don't understand. It's not that I don't have any luggage. This is all I own in my shoulder bag. I don't have anything more than this. I got everything with me. This is everything I have. And that's kind of nice, isn't it? Just one shoulder bag. That's your whole life is right there. So then that means that if after Vienna you don't want to go back to Australia, don't have to. come to the BGF instead, yeah? And you are okay, because there's nothing there. There's something very beautiful about that. I often tell people about one of the, another kind of great monk who lived in Sri Lanka. He was German background, and he was very famous for being very ascetic and living very simple. And the first 10 years of his life, he lived in what is known as the island hermitage in Sri Lanka, which is just this hermitage on an island, and he stayed there and he just learned the suttas. That was before there was much computers. It was back in the 1960s and 70s and that sort of thing. So the only way to learn the suttas was to memorize them. So he memorized this whole number of suttas. And after staying there for about 10 years, becoming independent as a monk, he set out wandering. And he wandered around Sri Lanka for the next 35 years or whatever, just wandering everywhere all the time, staying for the rains retreat and then wandering on. And everything he owned, he would carry with him. And one of the days he was in Colombo, and so he had some supporters in Colombo, and he was walking down the street, and he was walking towards a crossroad. And the supporter were asking, "Where are you going, Venerable Sir? Are you going to go left in the crossroad or right in the crossroad?" And he was walking towards it. "I haven't decided yet." He was only 5 minutes away. So everything is kind of in the present. When I get to the crossroad, then I will decide where to go, left or right. No destiny, nowhere particular to go. There's complete freedom. When I get there, I look left and right. What looks best? More forest to the left. Okay, go to the left. That's kind of amazing. You know how many people can live like that. And of course, he became a very famous monk. And he was the monk of whom Ajahn Brahm said that he was gave the most inspiring Dhamma talk Ajahn Brahm had ever heard. And Ajahn Brahm stayed with some amazing teachers in Thailand, you know, and Ajahn Chah and many others. And so this was kind of special. So you still find people like this in the world. Not so many, but they still exist occasionally, far away. Content. Nothing in the world that they need. And it's a beautiful thing with that contentment. And it's not that hard. Once you kind of decide to give a reasonably simple life, well, then you might as well simplify it as much as possible. And you just, you know, as long as you get a good meal, enough to eat, then it's not, it sounds kind of hard, but it's not actually that hard to have that kind of contentment. I'm sure all of you could do it if you really, if you started on that path. Because this also relates to lay life. This kind of contentment for each one of you. How can you be content with what you have? Do you always need more? Do you always need to? And many of you are already probably quite content with what you have. You're not seeking for more. That means you already have that right attitude, the right idea. And then you just need to simplify a bit more. Chuck out a few, whatever, and then kind of. Sometimes it's really hard. I used to tell my mother when I meet her, she used to have 2 houses. She's selling one now, finally. I try to get through to her. You only need 1 house. You are 1 person. Your husband is dead. There's only 1 person. How can you have 2 houses? I said it. I wasn't too strong or forceful. If you reduce, it's going to be much easier for you. You don't have to look after all of these things. She wasn't able to get rid of those 2 houses, but eventually then she decided, and I think now hopefully maybe her life will be simplified a little bit. People want complexity. They are attached to things. Grasping on, is really important for them. Anyway, so it's good that contentment is great. And what, of course, that does, it reduces your desires, it reduces all of these things. You live a life you have sufficient, and your mind becomes far more peaceful when you are content. And this is the idea here. I always tell people this famous verse from the Dhammapada. Actually, I think it might be coming up. I can't remember. Yeah, it's coming up anyway, so I'll read it out for you in a second. Anyway, so this is contentment, So whenever they go, they set out taking only these things. When they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, they experience a blameless happiness inside themselves. So all the various kind of morality and ethics are spoken about before this, and contentment is the last one. And then this is how it is all kind of comes together in this way. So you feel blameless. There's nothing to blame you. Maybe this should be a bit earlier, because contentment is more than just being blameless. It kind of adds beyond that. Blamelessness is usually about not doing anything bad. So this is, I think, a slightly higher kind of happiness that also touches on the idea of sense restraint, or being restrained. And then we have this beautiful little verse from the Dhammapada. Yeah, this is Dhammapada number 104. Health is the ultimate blessing. Contentment the ultimate wealth. Trust is the ultimate family. And extinguishment is the ultimate happiness. That's a beautiful little verse. Health is the ultimate blessing. Yeah, once you start to get sick or whatever, it's kind of terrible. Contentment is the highest wealth. Yeah, it's one of those things that you straight away it seems strange, but if you're not content, it means you need more. And because you need more, you haven't got enough. Once you're content, you have enough. That is why it is the highest wealth. Kind of obvious when you think about it. Only the content person is truly wealthy. Everyone else needs to strive for more. Elon Musk, not wealthy enough. Yeah, he wants more. He only has $1 trillion or whatever, but he's not happy. Still not content. Trust is the ultimate family. Yeah, why do we have family? Hopefully so we can trust each other. But if you have trust everywhere, it's almost like you have your family everywhere. Extinguishment is the ultimate happiness. It's one of those paradoxical statements. When you extinguish things, when you end things, when you put out the fire, when there's nothing left, that is when you have the highest happiness. We'll get back to this later on. So that is contentment for you. So, what is next? So now we are coming to the idea of gratitude. Yeah, and so this again was in that verse. Now we are in the numerical discourses, the second chapter, the twos, Sutta number 32. Mendicants, I will teach you the level of the untrue person and the level of the true person. Listen and apply your minds well, I will speak. So the level is like the degree, yeah, or the whatever of the untrue, the asapurisa and the sapurisa. This is the Aryans versus the non-Aryans. Yes, sir, they replied. The Buddha said this. What is the level of the untrue person? The untrue person is ungrateful and thankless. For the wicked only know how to be ungrateful and thankless. It is totally the level of an untrue person to be ungrateful and thankless. The true person, the sapurisa, is grateful and thankful. For the virtues only know how to be grateful and thankful. It is totally the level of the true person to be grateful and thankful. So, by having gratitude and being thankful is one of the ways in which you know that someone has special qualities. It is rare in the world to have these qualities. So if you have this, you are kind of already on the right track. It shows you that you have a certain understanding for what is going on. It is not easy to be generous in the world. It is hard, and when someone is generous, you kind of appreciate that beautiful mind state behind that. You appreciate that someone is doing something really beautiful by being generous, and so you feel a sense of gratitude and thankfulness because of that. It is hard. Generosity is hard. It is rare in the world, and so you understand that. And then you rejoice in that, and you feel grateful and thankful as a consequence. So if you want to be a sapurisa, a true person, a good person, a superior person, then have that gratitude and thankfulness. And of course, in your meditation, we are putting a lot of emphasis on the idea of building up good qualities in your meditation, so you can stay with the breath and stay with the meditation object. One of those good qualities you can use is a sense of gratitude. If you feel that gratitude in your meditation, it will be incredibly helpful to sustain your attention on your object. So be grateful. Be grateful for being here. Be grateful for having the Buddha's teachings. Be grateful to yourself, for bringing yourself here. Be grateful to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Be grateful for anything you can be grateful for. Be grateful to the BGF. Be grateful to Bobby, who helps organizing these things, and anyone else who helps out. Be grateful for so many things to be grateful for in this world. There are so many blessings that each one of us have, and that's why we are here and why we can enjoy these things. It's all about turning your mind in the right direction. What happens next? Ungrateful, more about gratitude. Someone with 4 qualities is raised up to heaven. Sounds good. So what are these 4 qualities? Good conduct by way of body, speech and mind, and being grateful and thankful. Someone with these 4 qualities is raised up to heaven. So I don't know if you want to be reborn in heaven, but if you do, this is the way forward. If you think that it's best to be reborn as a human being, some of you seem to be a bit uncertain about heavenly rebirth, and maybe but if I think being reborn in heaven is a good idea, I recommend it, because it's like going on a holiday, relaxing a little bit, enjoying your time, and you can still practice in heaven. So I would say, just allow karma to make its work its way. And anyway, all of these things are qualities that you need for awakening anyway. So you should be doing all of these things. These are things that lead to all the good things you want on the path. Your meditation is going to be powerful. You're going to feel good. You're going to be more wise. The insights will be more powerful. So all of this is part of the same path. So going to heaven and practicing the Dhamma is largely the same thing. It's all heading in the same direction. So practice these things. And then you will be doing the right thing. I think a lot of the idea of gratitude and thankfulness is that it is related also to your generosity. So if you are a generous person, you will also tend to be grateful and thankful because you understand the power of generosity. So one way of developing gratitude is actually to be generous. You start to understand what these things actually mean, and so you practice them accordingly. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Times. Now we're coming to the last part of this particular sutta. And so this is mendicants. There are these 4 right times. What for? The right time for listening to the teaching. The right time for discussing the teaching. The right time for serenity. And the right time for discernment. These are the 4 right times. So this is interesting, isn't it? So in other words, you are going to not have to know what you should be doing at any particular time. And it's not as obvious as you may think. Right now, this particular verse we're looking at in the Paṭhamakālasutta is the listening to the teaching, timely listening to the teachings, and the next verse, which we haven't seen yet, is the timely discussing of the teaching. So both of these things are an aspect of Dhamma practice. So it is not always right to listen to teachings. Sometimes we listen to too many teachings. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes that's you listen to teachings all the time, and you don't really hear what is going on anymore because you listen to too many. It goes one in one ear and goes out the other one, and maybe you lose a little bit as it goes through you. So be careful with listening to too many teachings. Sometimes uses this as they are at home and they kind of play Dhamma talks all day long. And it's not really useful. It is better to listen to, when you listen properly. Listen to something good, and then make that the right time for listening to the teaching. Know when you need it. Know when something is missing, some understanding is missing in your life. Know when you need some inspiration from the Buddha. Know what your requirements are. Then you can listen to the teachings. Then there are times when you maybe have some uncertainty, and that, of course, is the time for discussing the teachings. You don't know, and this is kind of what we are sort of doing here. Discussing or asking questions basically comes down to the same thing. It is to clarify what is going on. That is important. Yeah, sometimes in certain Buddhist situations, people just listen all the time, and there's a fear of asking questions, and that's not really the way it should be. If you do engage with the teachings, that it is natural that questions will arise, and so you should have an opportunity to sort that out. Yeah, but you shouldn't be asking questions all the time. Some people ask too many questions. I'm not saying anyone here. I'm just saying that sometimes it happens. Because sometimes people ask questions for the wrong reasons. Yeah, people ask questions because they want to argue. People ask questions because they want to have their biases confirmed or whatever it is. And that is the wrong way of asking questions. But if you truly are curious and you're trying to understand, of course, that is always the right time. So it's not the quantity of questions that is too much. It is the kind of questions that is too much. The right time when there are doubts and uncertainty. There's the right time for serenity. There's, in other words, the right time for practicing samadhi. Yeah, when you sit down and you make the mind peaceful and calm, there's the right time for that. What is the right time for that? Well, it's basically any time when you need more calm in your life, which is kind of very common. Most people, it's always the right time to do that. The right time for discernment, this is the vipassana. That is when you have a lot of serenity, but you're not sure how to understand phenomena. That is a time to do discernment practice, and you look upon things in the right way. That is what vipassana is all about. So these are the 4 right times, when to listen to the teaching, when to discuss, when to practice samatha, when to practice vipassana. And as you do that, you grow in the Dhamma in the right way through this. Anyway, so it's a short, nice little teaching for you right there. So let's take a 5-minute break and do some question and answers. You can ask. Don't be afraid. I did not mean you at all when I said that before. I only meant people who ask in the wrong kind of way. You're asking in a very nice way, so don't worry. You're okay. Please.
Good afternoon, Ajahn.
Good afternoon.
When you go for talks in all the countries that you have been, do you see that there are more women in your talks than men?
Everywhere.
Yeah. But it seems that in the sutta, right, the names mentioned, I guess they are men. So is there a reason why now there are more women in these talks compared to men? Has it got to do with some dharma? Has it got to do with some karma? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know whether there were more men then. I'm not sure about that. It's very hard to know. It's not clear because it doesn't usually say exactly, how many were there. One of the things that we do know was that the monk sangha was established first, and so you had men who ordained first. So the monks are kind of more senior than the nuns, than the bhikkhunis. So probably, maybe there were more monks than nuns. That's probably the case. But in terms of the people who listen to the Dhamma, it's very hard to tell whether there were more lay women or more lay men. Maybe there were more women then too. I wouldn't be surprised if even then there were more women actually, because it seems to be, maybe it is just the way that it is. Maybe there is a little bit of gender difference there between men and women. Maybe, I don't know exactly why it is the case. It's very hard to know. Some people suggest that women have more suffering in their life. Maybe that's why they are coming more. That's what someone suggested. Maybe it is on average a bit more difficult to be a woman. Maybe because maybe you are. As a woman, you're more vulnerable, perhaps, in society and these kind of things. Maybe that makes it more difficult. So it's hard. Do you have a theory about this?
No, I was just contemplating.
Yeah.
Because in those days, the women are in charge of the house, so they do a lot of cooking. So in the present day, the women also does a lot of cooking.
Yeah.
So I was thinking then that perhaps in my mother's generation time, when they go to the market, they pick a chicken and they slaughter the chicken, and then they slaughter a lot of things. So perhaps that becomes the karma. I was thinking whether my contemplation is correct,
Women have more bad karma?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe because of that, that's why we have to come to Dharma talk. Dharma to understand and then to perfect ourselves so that we can born a man. You think so?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there is any worse karma being reborn as a woman than a man. I don't think so. I think the main reason why people get reborn in their gender is because of attachment. So once you have become a man, you will tend to want to be a man in the future because you are used to that. And what you are used to, you know, and so you are attached to it, and so you want to carry on. If you are born a woman, you tend to be attached to being a woman because you know what that's like. It feels good for you, and so you tend to carry on as a woman. And so I think this idea that it is worse karma to be a woman compared to a man, I think that is not really the case. When we look at, there is obviously a little bit of difference between the genders. Maybe, women do probably have, I think, slightly, sometimes anyway, more difficult lives than men, at least in some areas. It's very hard to judge overall. But when we talk about good and bad karma, we're talking about different realms usually, and that is so there's a significant difference. The difference between men and women, if there is one, is very small and is very marginal, and so it's not really worth mentioning. And so I think the main reason is attachment. That's why we get reborn in certain genders. So no, but it's still interesting. Why are there more women? Maybe because men are more stupid. Maybe men have other priorities. Traditionally men have been more, been the ones who kind of work more. They kind of are more involved in society in the sense of working, and they are kind of more competitive perhaps than women are. Men. And when they work, they are the status of work may be more important to them. Maybe because women are more traditionally more family oriented perhaps. I'm just making generalizations now, I don't know. And maybe that is that kind of idea that you are more oriented towards work and that is very important to you, means that you have less time or less inclination towards the spiritual path. Perhaps. I honestly don't know. But so I think there's probably complicated reasons for this. At the end of the day, not sure. Does anyone have any contemplations about this? When the bhikkhunis over, did you have any ideas about these kind of things? You asked the men who don't come why they're not here. Okay,
Ajahn,
all those men.
I think one of the reasons may be obvious from the Vinaya. When the bhikkhu, let's say they stay in a remote area, or dangerous area, then they have to warn the lay devotees that this is a very dangerous area and the woman got raped. And you think that this is something that only happens in the past, and nowadays I found out from Bhante Saraswati Dhammika that he almost got killed while he was on pilgrimage. So India of the past was a dangerous place for men and women, and it's still dangerous for men as well, especially for women. So to travel alone to meet bhikkhu sangha or whatever is kind of a very dangerous undertaking for them.
Sure.
So I'm not surprised that there will be less women inclined to venture out. That's what I think.
But that doesn't really explain why more women go to the monastery, does it? Or
why
are there more women going to Dhamma talks and things
nowadays? Nowadays, I think is more. That I am not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
but in the sutta, you see that most of the interactions between men, bhikkhus and men, not women folk.
Maybe.
It's not that much. But I think you can see that
it's true. If it was far away, then it would have been problematic, maybe. Okay, good point. So maybe there was less. That's the reason why there was less women then. Maybe. Any other ideas about this? This important question.
Afternoon, Ajahn. It's not a question relating to women or men, but it's more of a comment on concern. Hearing that you walk alone, I suggest you don't walk alone. They might take you for ransom, kidnap you and ask for ransom for BGF. And because you're so valuable to the community, BGF might have to take days to go fund me to raise fund. Because in Malaysia, of late, there has been a report about some syndicate going to the Columbrium to steal urns.
Okay.
So if they can kidnap urns, what more they can kidnap the renowned Ajahn Brahmali?
Okay. Is that common, the kidnap monks? Does that happen often?
No, but because bizarre things can happen,
they
it
can
is
happen,
shocking to read that they can kidnap urns. What more?
Okay. You're not going to be able to keep me back, you know. This is impossible. This is not going to happen.
Bobby,
you're
you
gonna have to
better
pay,
make sure your funds are in standby.
You're going to have to pay the ransom. One of the things is that you cannot allow too much fear to run your life. If you do, you've never done anything at all, you know. I appreciate your kindness. I know that you're saying from a kind place, but you're not going to be able to stop me. That's the downside. I'm not that easily stopped. That's not the way I work. But usually I'm okay because I wander around everywhere. I enjoy wandering around places. Okay, good. Any... Take Bobby along, No, Bobby used to come along. Bobby is quite good, actually. Bobby is quite good shape. Yeah, he's quite a strong walker. So.